for a year now. Texans have wrestled with COVID, and they have learned best how to conduct their own lives. For example, if businesses want to limit capacity or implement additional safety programs.
You control it. I don't know. Turn it off. Like I told you, I can't see that.
Okay, got it. Are we on? Yes, we are. Well, it's about time we do something on this enchilada. I'm looking for this where it's on there. Did you mute number 4? Good. So I'm trying to figure out which one was running on that. We're on Newswire on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube, as we do every day at 5 on that. A little bit of stuff. We moved some stuff around and stuff, and we got some stuff going on. So it might be a little bumpy, rocky on the road here today, but we'll get her straightened it out, and we'll get through on the best hour of entertainment on that. You won't get anything else. This is where you get the real story. Or as the late great Paul Harvey used to say, the rest of the story on that. We'll have Tom Del Beccaro coming on later on at the bottom of the hour, giving us an update on the recall effort of that odious idiot Governor Gavin Newsom that we have going on. Lots of stuff, some great news on coming out of Texas. But the main story that we got coming on this is a very tragic situation happened down in right by the border in Holtville, California. If you don't know where that is, it's about 100 or plus miles east of San Diego, right by El Centro. If you know where that is, probably about 60 miles south of the Salton Sea. You see the picture of it. A big rig hit a Ford Expedition SUV. According to CHP, as you see the story on IE Newswire, a Ford Expedition seats 8 people. There were 25 people in the Expedition when the gravel hauling truck was traveling down SR 115, and it appears from the reports that the SUV was coming on Norris Road, turning onto that, or somewhere that's where they made the connection. A horrific scene was there. I mean, people were ejected all over. It was just you can imagine rolling up on a scene where 25 people were stuffed in an SUV that was built for 8 passengers. 13 people, as of the last report I had, died in the SUV. 12 were injured, transported to the hospital. The driver of the rock hauling truck was also transported to the hospital with various injuries. Now, the CHP officer that gave the report on that was asked if it was determined, or they had determined, that any of the occupants were U.S. citizens or not, and he said he didn't have at this time. I would bet my farm, your farm, and everybody else's farm, this was a coyote hauling immigrants, asylum seekers, or whatever's been going on that have been running across the border since Joe Biden became president on January 20th, 2021, shut down the construction of the wall unconstitutionally, and I think one court has reversed the decision where he was saying no deportations at all for anybody. I think that's been reversed in the courts. We're fighting that out. But you heard, ever since that day, you heard the reports of those who were on the border, of the people flooding over the border. Now, no matter what your position is on immigration or what, and that's the sole, per the Constitution of the United States, that's under the sole purview of the Congress to set the policy how it is, whatever. But still, you need entry points. You don't need people where you run into chaos no matter what the immigration policy is, whether you're letting zero in or you're letting millions in a year. They have to be documented, in here legally, and they cannot be let just run across people's property at the border, trampling down their, destroying their property, going back and forth. You take Chula Vista, and you want to know when this happened? This happened in the 90s under President Bill Clinton. Chula Vista at the border on our side was a wreck. Nobody wanted to live there. It was in despair because people were just flowing across the border on that, stealing everything. Crime was going crazy, yada, yada, yada. We built 12 miles of wall on there within 2 years. Chula Vista turned into a model community because you had law and order. You didn't have people just running across, trampling other people's property, destroying it, doing God knows what everything. We're doing the same crap with the homeless. The homeless is the newest deal. They're running the show right now. They have more rights than us. They can sleep on the sidewalk, they can piss, crap, run their drug needles, have sex in the street. Your kids got to watch this. When they were able to go to school, they had to walk through a lot of this in places to get to the school, and they had to endure that. Now on top of that, we've created this homeless crunch. Now we're back to the old immigration policies, or let's not even say immigration, our own securities at the border. And you see what kind of disaster it's going to create. You hear Border Patrol on and on. They're back to what it was when it was unrestrained of that, and it was catch and release, and nobody was doing anything. You're hearing Border Patrol agents already saying we're getting ready to quit because we can't control it. They're letting them back out as soon as we arrest them. If we stay on the Joe Biden policy, you're going to see more tragedies. And give me number 4 again. You're going to see more or worse tragedies than this. Because they don't care. Anybody, and if this was a coyote, and it turns out to that, anybody that would stuff 25 people in a SUV that was only meant to seat 8 people does not give a crap about anything but green dollar bills. They'll stuff hundreds in a 40-foot tractor trailer rig. They'll cram them in there like sardines. Because all they're concerned about is the money. Human trafficking. You think it's been bad? This was the whole deal about that. And Trump said it when he come in. You know what they're doing? Once they get on the American side, they're picking all the teenage girls out of there. And you know what they're going to be sold into next. They're going to be made into prostitutes, sex slaves, and everything else. The bottom line in this is that the America you want. There's no bigger reason, and we can start it in California. www.recallgavin2020.com. We got 2 weeks left. we're at 1.9 million signatures and counting. We need at least 2 million plus, so they don't play. So it makes it very difficult for them to play funny games with certifying the 1.5 million signatures needed to put it on the ballot. We need to be the first shot in the United States that's going to turn it around, and California's got the horsepower, means to do it. We just got to do it, because I don't want to come on here not only to report this tragedy that just happened in Holtville, California. I don't want to be having to come on and report this every day. And it will happen if we allow schools to keep being closed, racist teachers, which we're going to run some of the clips of UTLA, Cicely Myert Cruz, the one up in Oakland, the teachers union pres, who was up there saying, lobbying to keep public schools closed while he takes his kid to a private school. This is what we've got going on. Governor Greg Abbott, Texas. Probably fired the shot that should be heard around the world. He said, he said, I'm rescinding every executive order on COVID. We're opening up 100%. Here's Governor Greg Abbott at a press conference today.
What's your favorite thing about Love Every?
I love.
There you go. Skip the. Here we go. Now we got it.
So today, I'm issuing a new executive order that rescinds most of the earlier executive orders. Effective next Wednesday, all businesses of any type are allowed to open 100%. That includes any type of entity in Texas. Also, I am ending the statewide mask mandate. Now, despite these changes, remember this: removing state mandates does not end personal responsibility.
Oh, we are personally responsible people. But again, I'll bet my farm, your farm, and everybody else's, you'll never hear that out of that goofball, the evil twin governors, as I call them, Gavin Newsom and Andrew Cuomo of New York. Because it's all about control. It's all about dictating your lives. And the more you stand for it, or the more you conform, the more they're going to lock you down. We put some cracks in the dike. It's going to Gavin Newsom, he didn't come out with this opening up the schools and teachers don't have to be vaccinated or nothing, because we were all wearing masks and doing that. He did that up on because 1.9 and counting signatures are out there to recall his shiny little butt. Now it's incumbent on our other elected officials, if you don't want to suffer the same consequences that Gavin Newsom's going through right now, you better get off your ass. I don't want to hear no more closed meetings. At the county meeting, at the county of San Bernardino or county of Riverside, we were allowed in the chambers. We were allowed to walk up there and to speak like human beings that we are. We weren't behind Zoom meetings. We weren't behind telephones. We weren't nothing. If you're going to stand for that, then you deserve what you get. And if you're going to support the politicians that are putting us through this, then there's no hope. It's time to take a stand all across the board. It's time to call it as it is, who it is, and where it is. Somebody asked me if I was going to go to participate in the Moreno Valley City Council meeting or any of the others. Not no, but hell no. Because you got 5 gutless politicians up there, well, 4 of them, and they continue to keep the meetings closed like most of the others, like Moreno Valley Unified School District and a lot of the others. Texas pulled the mask mandate. Florida pulled it. Kristi Noem, the governor of South Dakota, never put one on ever. The lines are drawn in the sand. Like I said, you got a 180-degree opposite. You got Kristi Noem in South Dakota, Ron DeSantis in Florida, well, now joined by Greg Abbott in Texas, versus the evil twins, Gavin Newsom and Andrew Cuomo. The states that did not lock down, that did not torture their citizens, kick their kids and keep their kids out of schools for over a year, those states are flourishing. What do you hear in New York and California? You hear scandal. You look at just what happened in Holtville. Look at our streets. We had the Joel Grover report from KMBC7. Our biggest garbage dumps in the state of California are now called freeways. We used to drive on those. Now we're turning them into garbage dumps because they want to get you out of your car. They want to take it because that is freedom. That allows you the ability not only to make a living for your family, but to actually enjoy life as you see fit. That gives you the freedom of travel and going where you want. When they take it away, it's going to be 152,000 times harder to get it back if you can. I want to see how many of you got guts enough to do this. Lots of you have. I don't know. I think there's a band of about 200,000 volunteers that have done this signature gathering for Recall Gavin. That needs to multiply by 5, 10, 20, 100. Because even once it's qualified, that's when the fun really begins. And it doesn't stop there. That's just the first salvo in turning this stuff around. You can't let up. You can't back off. You can't think somebody else is going to do it. You can't be afraid. Because if you are, if you think somebody else is going to do it, or I can, or I don't know, or you think somebody's going to protect you, just because you might think you're on the winning team today.
What's your favorite thing about Love Every?
I love.
Then just watch. I mean, I played a little bit of the clip. Go back and watch June of 1961, The Obsolete Man from the Twilight Zone. You might think when you're on, you might think, yeah, when the people in power, the dictators, the tyrants, when you think they're on your side, yeah, you're living fat, dumb, and happy. But it takes just like that, and they'll turn on you in a flat flash. It's just that critical. We might run some clips of Cicely Myrick Cruz. The head of UTLA, United Teachers of LA. Some of the things that are coming out of that. This is up in Berkeley. Here's the report of the teachers union head who's been lobbying to keep your kids out of school, but this is what he does.
And union leader as a hypocrite. There he is, dropping off his child at a preschool. At the same time, he has been a voice for keeping schools closed until all teachers have been vaccinated. KPIX5's Alan Martin with the group behind the Gotcha video.
Video released by the anonymous back-to-school advocacy group called Gorilla Moms shows a man the group says is Matt Meyer, president of the Berkeley Federation of Teachers, dropping his child off at private preschool. Meyer and the union have been staunchly fighting for students to return to full-time in-person instruction only after teachers have been vaccinated. Meyer is not commenting on the video, but did confirm to the East Bay Times that his 2-year-old does attend private preschool, adding there are no public options for children her age. As for his teacher vaccination advocacy, here's Meyer at the Berkeley Unified School Board meeting February 3rd, pushing for teacher vaccination so children can safely return to the classroom.
Teachers are not asking to jump the line. However, we do know that our community is beyond anxious about the timeline for returning to some form of in-person learning. Many Berkeley students and their families are stressed and suffering. Their teachers are as well. We all know that there is no substitute for being in a safe and healthy classroom.
Jonathan Zackerson, founder of Reopen California Schools, told me the video may show hypocrisy, but Meyer isn't alone.
I'm not that surprised. And he's not the only one that's doing this. There's school board members to politicians, including Gavin Newsom, who have their kids in-person learning right now when many other students in public school are not.
In responding to a KPIX request for a statement, Gorilla Moms told us, "We want our schools open today, 5 days a week, just as city, county, and California Public Health has said we can safely do today. Other districts around us are open, have been open for months, and intend to move to 5 days a week. Berkeley children's right to a free public education have been violated for a year."
We also reached out to Matt Meyer for comment. We have not heard back. The Berkeley Unified Superintendent points out vaccinations for teachers and staff started last week, and they hope to eventually have all students involved in this hybrid in-person learning plan by April 19th. But nobody's going to breathe easy until more and more people get vaccinated.
Yeah, absolutely. And,
Pull that back up. This is the teachers union head as he presents himself to a meeting of the school board of that. That looks real professional, doesn't it? That gives you a lot of confidence that this guy has your kid's interests at heart, because he doesn't. I've told you many times, unions only have one purpose. That's to represent their membership. They don't give a crap about your kids or nothing else. They're there to get more money for their teachers, for less work time, for more benefits, and better working conditions. That's all they're there for. Let's call it like it is. It goes on across the board, like Gorilla Mom said. We want our kids back in school. We want them in 5 days a week. The science, not even the science, the real world stuff that we've did says there is no reason why they're not. And just like they said, we pointed out yesterday when Dr. Kelly Victory was on, they're not releasing the studies at Gavin Newsom. When the reporters called him out twice and he tap danced around it and said it was on there, and they said, no, it's not. They're not releasing the information. I will bet you dimes to a donuts, because it will show you there is no more risk to teachers or kids or anything else being in the classroom than anything else they can be doing. So, if you want to accept being treated as a fool, then keep Gavin Newsom in office. And keep voting for the same yo-hos that are giving you what they've been giving you for decades. There is no more time. There is no more excuse. If we're coming up on the year of this crap, since the first lockdown by Newsom, March 18th, 2020. And it ain't getting any better. They're already setting up the deck chairs of here you go with this, that, and the other, and more variants, and da-da-da-da-da. They've already done this. Whenever something else comes up, they're going to start with the same lockdowns and the purple with pink polka dot tears and everything else that goes on. We need to tell them to shove it right up their ass. And we're fixing to do that, starting with Gavin Newsom. We're going to be joining KMET 1490, the Mighty Med, here in a few minutes. Hopefully we'll have Tom Dobacaro to give us an update on that said recall. Because in our little neck of the woods, there's probably nothing that should be one on the radar of getting this stuff done.
1 minute.
Because on top of that, I, for one, don't want to live as a serf. Maybe you do, but I sure as hell don't.
Thirty
and
seconds.
I'm going to do whatever it takes legally to get us, to keep us from doing that. Because there is no other way to go. I didn't play.
Okay, guys, here we go. 10 seconds. SupplyKing.com.
OEM Supply King. We got it!
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
My Guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday at 5:30 on the Mighty Met 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire and the aforementioned AM band, joining our vast video audience and IE Newswire on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. I promised you an update from Tom Del Beccaro. We got short time, so we're going to get him right on. He's the proprietor of politicalvanguard.com, tomdell.com. You'll see him on Fox News and everywhere else, but more importantly, you got him on IE Newswire. Roy, give us an update on that recall, Tom Del Beccaro.
How are you?
Absolutely fantastic.
We have turned in, as of Monday, one means that those are in the hands of the 58 registrars. In addition to that, there's probably another 120 to 40,000 that are either in our various offices or in the hands of paid circulators. So we are not that far away. Nevertheless, I don't want anyone to get the impression that they need to stop or can stop. You have to keep going. You can go to rescuecalifornia.org and download the petition. We certainly need money to finish up this operation, but we could say we have approximately 1,850,000 signatures, but we still need to keep pushing and try and get to 2 million.
Correct. I mean, this is the last, about 2-week push. You got to push harder because it not only is probably going to be a fight on the signatures, even if we get this thing certified, it's probably in being a Harvard attorney as you are, you probably explain better what the they're going to fight this legally. The court suits are going to probably be filed if it qualifies in the whole enchilada. So I mean, once we get, even if we do get this thing certified, that's just the beginning of this thing.
It is. RescueCalifornia.org is not going away after March 17th. We're going to continue to raise money for the legal battles you described, and also to get the more word out to people about, why this guy has to go. But importantly, we still need 150,000 more signatures.
Yes.
And so if you've already signed it, thank you. Please go to the site, download another petition, and get 3 or 4 friends. And believe me, we do these radio shows all over the state, TV shows, and it adds up across the state as large as California. We're not taking anything for granted. Every 3 or 4 signatures helps.
It is absolutely critical because we do got to get it on the ballot to start those court fights and everything else to get the recall election on that. Just want to get your impression on it. I think we talked the last time on that, and I know I've seen you across some of the other channels of that. Mentioned much. I think Rick Rennell mentioned a little bit at the CPAC conference and stuff. But, I've said it a month ago. I said we need to nationalize this recall election of Gavin Newsom. This can be the fuel, the spark that starts the fire, that starts turning California around, and then we can use that momentum to start running all across the country, as Greg Abbott did today. Said the masks and the lockdowns are 100% over. Texas is the latest one that is moving forward. We need to light this fire in California and keep it going.
Yeah, 100%. And what this is the center of the resistance to big government. This is the largest grassroots effort probably ever in America. I mean, we're going to set a record for millions of signatures, especially the great work the volunteers did as part of Recall Gavin 2020. So this is a focal point, and we need to keep focused on this and run up those numbers, and that's why we need these additional 150,000 signatures.
At least, at a minimum, we need 100. It would be we need another 1.5 million signatures. Just put one hell of a stamp on this to say, you know what, we're serious. We're because you won't hear I mean, I'm going to say that the odds are 99.999%. You will not hear the words out of Gavin Newsom that you heard out of Greg Abbott today, that I'm rescinding most of the executive orders. We're done with this. It's time to start living our lives as normal. The only way we're going to hear that is if we recall Gavin Newsom and get him out of that governor's chair, and we can't do it fast enough.
I agree with you 100%. You're right. He has to be pushed. Even the LA Times saying the recall's pushing him to change his policies, just not far enough yet.
Yeah, you wouldn't have heard that Monday press conference of, we're going to try and open the schools and maybe the teachers don't need vaccines. You wouldn't have heard that if there weren't 1.8 million signatures plus and counting by the day, getting ready to oust his little butt.
No, that's 100% true. You're right.
And that's what we got to do. This is no time to let up. We've got to do this. We've got to put it on the ballot, and then we've got to really dig in and fight. Tell them, Tom Del Beccaro, where they can go to sign that petition.
RescueCalifornia.org. That's RescueCalifornia.org. Thanks so much for having me on, Roy.
You got it. Thanks for the time. We'll do it again soon.
Bye-bye.
Tom Del Beccaro, Political Vanguard. This is probably the recall of Gavin Newsom is the biggest, probably going to go down in history to date as the biggest volunteer effort, grassroots, bottom up, that's ever been seen in the history of the world. This was started by Orrin Heady and a few guys on that. And I got to tell you, we got lucky on this stuff. And if there was one thing about the COVID, it probably allowed. It's one of the I guess you could say one of the great ironies probably when you're going to look back in history if he gets out of office. Gavin Newsom's own policies are probably going to get him out of office. Because the grassroots started this somewhere in the summer of 2020. And, there's a number. You got, it's usually 180 days to collect the signatures and da-da-da-da. Well, they were bumping up against that deadline right in December. And they petitioned the court and said, well, because of the COVID and it's made it more difficult, we couldn't go out and do a lot of public, out in front of the local box store or grocery store and get signatures. We need a time extension. And lo and behold, the court granted it. Extended it to March 17th, 2021. It wasn't days later that Gavin Newsom was partying hardy at the French Laundry at the $1,000 a plate drinks and dinner with the lobbyists and everything in with no masks, no nothing, inside, and the pictures leaked out when he was telling you you were going to kill your mother or everybody else if you did exactly the same thing as he was doing. If the dude had any political smarts, he would have done a long time ago what Greg Abbott did today. And then if he would have went to the French Laundry, at least he wouldn't have been violating, let's not get into the money part and the influence peddling and all the other implications of this, but at least he wouldn't have been violating his own mandates or rules for thee and not for me. Then he has made every subsequent mistake since then, locking down with the purple and the red tiers and the whole this and the regions and the whole crapiola that's went down since that. He didn't even figure it out and said, well, I apologize for this or that. Well, heck, we just had it the other day. where they were up in Central California. He was doing that with comedian George Lopez as he's in there, and they're in the restaurant and stuff like that. Now, they're saying that he didn't eat anything or that, but what are they sitting down at the table, and there's food there inside the restaurant, all on top of that. Were you just saying they were just props, or what happened to it when the cameras weren't on? We can end this crap. And I think we're going to. At least we're going to start turning the tides. It's kind of been surprising to me. It's had a different dynamic of this. I mean, go back to 2003 when we recalled Gray Davis. We had the electricity crisis, tripling of the car tax. As soon as the recall went off, I mean, people were jerking the petition out of your hands trying to sign it. Now, of course, a lot of things have changed, even in the last 15, 17, 18 years that's been. But as we talked Friday with Cliff Cummings, proprietor, let me get the word out, of Toyota San Bernardino, as you see the sign of that beside me, we talked about Friday. We cannot make the mistake that we did of the last time when we voted. We did recall Gray Davis, but we put Arnold Schwarzenegger in, which I said before the election. You could go back and look in the history books. I said, you elect Arnold Schwarzenegger as governor of California, you just guaranteed the third term of Gray Davis. And you look at the policies that went on, we still did that. And then we got Moonbeam Brown and that, and then Newsom and that, and the legislature, and 2/3 plus majority in the House, or the Assembly and the Senate, and yada, yada, yada. You see where it's led up to. You've led up to the once golden state is now known as the empire of the homeless. Once the greatest road, freeway, highway system in the world is now classified as the biggest trash dump in California. All you hear is, like I've said, blame the straight has been the root of all evil. That's what they've tried to portray. And as we put the graphic up yesterday on that, quit blaming somebody else. Take responsibility for yourself, for crying the hell out loud. You know, there's 7 billion people on this planet. About, close to 350 million in the United States. That's 5% of the population. Just being born in the United States of America, the greatest country in the history of the freaking world, you're already in the top 5%. You hit the lottery just by being here. You should have, but increasingly it's slipping away. You had life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You had personal property rights. The right to own property and not have somebody else tell you what to do. Because when somebody else is telling you what to do, you are a slave. When somebody else is telling you to put on a mask when there is no evidence, well, not no, but hardly, the real world says that doesn't work. It didn't work. We tried it for a year when it was only supposed to be 2 weeks, and we're still down to the same crap. When somebody else is controlling you, dictating to you what you can wear, where you can go, how you can do it, now you tell me that is not a slave. And the ones dictating it are not the slave masters. That's the reality of the situation we are on, the track we are on. And if we don't get off this track, or we don't turn it around, you're going to think what's happening today is a cakewalk. I think we got a caller on the line. Who we got?
Hey, it's Wayne from Idaho, sir. How you doing?
Absolutely fantastic. What's on your mind?
Well, I was listening to the show, obviously, and I have to take some heart to the fact that it sounds like not Gray Davis, but your current idiot governor, Governor Hairgel, looks like he's got a problem. Looks like he's going down. And again, it's not because you don't like the way he combs his hair. It's because of his policies. He's an idiot. He's not a manager. He has no managerial background. His only background is he's affiliated with Nancy Pelosi. He's her nephew. That's it. That's the only thing he can. And he's a good sounding board for all the liberal feel-good policies that got you the stupidity in San Francisco, and that spread to the rest of the state. The rest of us out here are watching with potential glee at the thought of Newsom leaving office by force. To use his aunt's words, I think we will rip him from office. And I think that we are all looking for that because this will have a ripple effect. If you guys can get rid of Newsom now, this is going to put pressure on some of the other idiotic governors like Cuomo and some of the other ones that have just come out of left field with some of the most insane policies on the planet. I mean, you look at states like Washington, Oregon, North Dakota, Michigan, Illinois. These governors of these states have it all wrong. DeSantis got it right. South Dakota got it right. Texas finally got it right. And we need to take off all the masks and the stupidity and the hysteria and get on with our lives and understand what this was. This was nothing more than throwing people under the bus so they could subjugate the election process. So here's my next request. Since you guys seem to be doing fabulously down there, the next thing you guys need to go after, and as California goes, so goes the nation. If you guys can even get this on the ballot, it would be great. Eliminate electric voting machines. Get rid of them. No more electronic voting machines. No more BS mail-in ballots. You have to have an ID in my state to vote. That would be awesome if we could make that nationwide. That would eliminate a lot of the potential fraud. And if we could get rid of the electronic voting, they would have to go back to the old days of actually ballot stuffing and faking the ballots.
And I want to because we only got about 4 or 5 minutes left. I want to pick up on that. On top of that, one election, one day.
Yeah.
In fact, it wasn't that long ago. I would say probably 80 to 90% of the ballots across the nation on Election Day were cast on that first Tuesday in the year.
Yes.
You had to, if you want, I remember in California and most places, you had to have a valid reason to request an absentee ballot. Like, I'm over in Afghanistan fighting for my country, and I need that. My job is taking me, or I'm going to be on work or vacation during that time, yada, yada, yada. It started with the permanent absentee ballot. Now we had, with the whole implication of the whole thing in 2020 where they said, we can't beat, this is my opinion, we can't beat Trump one-on-one. We're gonna crook him out of it. We're gonna run this whole thing of that. No, you need, on top of that, we need voter ID on top of this.
Yes, absolutely. Look, many states, and I don't know the number off the top of my head, but many states, as my own does, require it. And why is it that people have such a fall apart over this when you have to have, look, if you operate a motor vehicle going down the road, you have to have identification. If the police
your
officer,
picture with your smiling little face on it, to might add.
Yeah. And if you pull it over and the man asks you for your identification, insurance, and registration, and you say, I ain't got it, he says, well, step back to the rear of the vehicle with me, and we will assist you in finding your identity.
Yes.
And, we'll
take a nice little picture of you down at headquarters and and your little face is going to be plastered all over the all over the internet in one of those famous mugshots.
Now, they're all crying about diversity and all of that hand-wringing nonsense. You do know that every high school requires their students and college requires them to have a valid picture ID, student body identification, whatever you want to call it, regardless of whether they have a state ID from wherever they come from. They must have an ID for their high school. I still have them stuffed in a drawer from 1981 and 2 when I was in high school. Way back when we required identification and people didn't say, well, the poor people can't get identity. You know what? I will personally come down and offer to take pictures for free. Okay? That's nonsense, and we know it's nonsense. It's a non sequitur. They are simply babbling about the edges, trying to create mountains out of molehills, so that's an impossibly, we can't achieve this. It's an impossible goal to achieve if we require, the poor people to have identification. See, they want to continue with the illegals voting and ballot stuffing and electronic voting, as you said, and I agree with you on this. They crooked the election because that was the only way they could get this. And you look at that duffel bag with eyes they have in there now. Unbelievable. The individual is far beyond his expiration date. He should have stayed out and been retired and just built the millions that he already had, billions that he already got his son and his family. But no, they had to trot him out as cover for Kamala Harris because they knew they wanted her. You go back on your show in 2018, it was January and February, and pull me up from that show. I told you then, Kamala Harris was nothing but a duffel bag with eyes. He's Mr. Potato Head up there, okay? He can't formulate a cognitive thought. Nonetheless, he is the President of the United States in name, and you have the court jesters running the rest of it. Now the latest is Nancy and the crew want the nuclear football away from Joe because he may have a lapse of reason at some
30
point.
seconds left.
Well, I think you guys need to go attack the voter thing. It sounds like you got the governor thing wrapped up. Start attacking the voter thing. Start it on your show, and let's get it done.
You got it. Thanks for calling in, Dwayne.
Take care.
Yeah, we hang up my, there you go. Yes, we need to get there. We need to get that done. And that's the next thing. And that's why we need to fire this off and start the recall of Gavin Newsom. This is the lighter on the weed that's going to start a brush fire going across the whole nation. like you said, we got a lot of work to do. Voter ID, one man, one vote. That is the principle this country is founded on. And that's where we need to reform this whole enchilada. Because if we don't have confidence in our system, if we don't have confidence in our law enforcement, our politicians, and everything else, then anarchy is what's going to break out next. And I don't think you want that to happen. So, we'll be back tomorrow on a Wicked Wednesday to update you all that in